Paltrocast. Okay, well, Jeff, I'm going to say thank you for taking the time. Is it good morning to you because you're Pacific?
I am, and it is.
Coffee is a rational decision at this point of time.
Very
Do you have
well.
that today mug from playing on there with Farner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I do.
good swag. Well, we are here to talk first about Revolution Saints, and then I'll talk about the extra interesting complimentary stuff. So,
Okay.
when
Sure.
did you finish this new Revolution Saints record?
Good question. I couldn't tell you that exact answer, to be honest with you. I mean, we did the tracks quite some time ago. That when I joined the band, there was essentially two records of material already written.
Yeah.
So I got the tracks like immediately after we finished the last record. Um, I think even before the last record was out, I might have started doing the tracks on this. So I couldn't honestly tell you. It's been several months though.
And it's cool to see that there was a couple of music videos cut quickly that have you and the rest of the guys in them. When did you tape those with relation to tracking the album?
Again, don't really have a great recollection of when. I'm the wrong guy to ask about that. I know tracking the albums quite some time after tracking.
Yeah.
But shortly before they were released, I would imagine. So, probably a month or two before they were released.
And this is yet another project that you've done in collaboration with Frontiers because Black Swan, End Machine, etc. What was your introduction to that label? Did they just reach out one day and go, "Hey, love your work in Dokken. Let's hire you"?
That's a good question. I want to I'm not sure. I feel like I had well, I did a Warrant record in 2015. I feel like I had relationship with and I want to say Last in Line I did before End Machine as well, I think. At least the first one. I know because I think Jimmy passed away in 2015 if I'm not mistaken. So wow.
Yes.
Holy crap, time is going by
Almost
fast.
almost a decade, sadly, that we lost
Yeah.
on that cruise. Yeah.
I think I'm about Jimmy's age when he passed. Anyway, so I mean, I think maybe Last in Line Warrant were my first connections, if I'm not mistaken. But I feel like that's like I'm missing something, but I'm not sure. But I know I've had a very very solid relationship with them since, especially since the M Machine and all that. So yeah, what a great label, very supportive, great label.
Yeah, that label fascinates me for a number of reasons, and one of them is that everything is headquartered out of Italy. But all the bands on his roster, did they tour Italy much? In other words, where did the melodic rock audience come from with relation to Italy that it's now bankrolling the entire genre?
Well, it's funny. Back in the day, I remember Dokken did better in Italy than we did in most other places in Europe,
Hmm.
except Germany, of course.
Yeah.
But so I think that the melodic rock audience, the seed was planted around then, around in the 80s. They were very slow, like Bon Jovi wasn't quite as well. No, I guess Bon Jovi was pretty big. I think he was doing stadiums in Europe, but I know a lot of bands didn't bother going to Europe. A lot of fellow
Van
bands.
Halen. Van Halen
Yeah,
didn't go to Europe. They
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
opened for
So
Bon Jovi in the 90s in
what's
Europe.
that? What's that?
Bon Jovi had Van Halen as their opening act in the 90s in Europe. That just
Yeah,
kind of says it all.
yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? So, yeah. So, but the seed was planted, I think, at one point, and then I think it just grew. And like most European audiences, they're very loyal and they're very true. They know what they want, and when they know what they want, they seek it out. And then they're very loyal to it. And we've been fortunate as a result of that, most of these bands. Um, so whatever seed was planted grew, and Europe has become a big thing for melodic rock. And Frontiers, I think it's just, happenstance that they're in Italy. I think they could have been anywhere, but there was a strong audience in Italy. I mean, Italy is also good with like really heavy diehard music too, but I just think it's melodic rock has this really dedicated audience that Frontiers tapped into, and I think that was needed.
Well, compliments, if I can start complimenting you, or are you maxed out for the day?
Well, I'm always good for more compliments, but okay.
Okay, so if we, where we first found out about Jeff Pilson was, of course, Dokken, and one of the great hard rock bands, in my opinion, of all time. But you've never rested on your laurels. You never went, I'm
Yeah.
Jeff from Dokken, because, of course, you've now been with Foreigner for almost 20 years. You had your time with Dio and War and Peace and producing people's records, etc. When did you kind of realize that you weren't defined by Dokken, that you could have this multifaceted career that also included acting? I know about Mortal Kombat and Rockstar and all that stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, my intention was always, to do as much in the music business as I was capable of. So even in the early days, even with when I was with Dokken in the 80s, I was very aware that I wanted to be a producer at some point. And I got a lot of experience and a lot of training during Dokken, working with some great engineers, producers,
Yeah.
learned so much, you know, really did like on the Tooth and Nail record, there was a degree where I was producing, there was parts of that record where I was producing the vocals. Basically, Tom Werman had said to me, you do it. You work with Don. You have a good rapport, you do it. Which was kind of an interesting thing. Especially because I was the new guy in the band, which is kind of odd. But yeah, so a lot of training back then, always intended to branch out and do, production, especially production. That's something I've always just absolutely loved. I was that 16-year-old kid who'd take the cassette machine and then do overdubs with the other cassette machine. And,
Mhm.
I've always been into this. And to this day, I love reading books by engineers and producers and, it's, nerdy stuff. I love all that. So that was always part of the plan. You know, I, most artists don't want to be defined by just one thing. So, I had to kind of grapple with that. Grapple? Is that a word? Grapple?
Grapple, that's more of the MMA fighting, which I don't associate Jeff Pilson with fighting personally,
Okay, but
but
but but I did fight a little bit with,
yeah,
I didn't want to be pigeonholed as just the bass player from Dokken.
yeah.
But it wasn't. It was only the way to fight that was just by doing what I did, which is just, as many things as I'm capable of, and writing with people and doing bands that I felt, creatively inspired with. So just pursuing the path, the artist path, follow your muse.
And it says in the label "Hot for Yoga," and following you early into the COVID-19 pandemic, I saw that you were offering meditation and encouraging people to do yoga. Now, are you one of those people who mellowed out as they got older, or were you all along level-headed?
No, I mellowed out a bit as I've gotten older. I mean, I think I was a bit level-headed, young when I was younger. And I started doing yoga when I was 20. So by the time I joined Dokken, I was 25, and there was, you know, I had kind of developed a somewhat more, um, I guess, a calm persona by then. Um,
Mhm.
and that and that was helpful in our interactions in Dokken, because Dokken had a lot of
Yes.
fiery moments, shall we say. So that was good for that.
Yeah.
Was I level-headed? I don't know. I think I was just realistic in some ways, and dedicated. I wanted the band to succeed, and I wanted us to use our potential and be what we could. So I had to fight for what I believed in that band, and oftentimes try to take the best from the warring factions and try and meld that together into something. That was part of my function, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, the yoga has definitely been a very influential thing with me. At 20, I was a pretty neurotic guy. By the time I was 25, I had definitely calmed down a bit. And I'd say the yoga was a big part of that. Which reminds me, if
Yes.
you're interested in the meditation, go to hotforyogascv.com. And there you'll find information about my virtual meditation class that I hold weekly, even from the road. It's a great thing. I started doing it during the pandemic, and I have really enjoyed it. So please join us. We're also doing a Costa Rica retreat from
Oh,
May 25th through June 1st. And you can also go to hotforyogascv.com. I believe retreat. I'm not sure, but just go to that website. You'll find about the Costa Rica retreat. It's going to be a lot of fun. We call it movement, meditation, music, and more. So join us. It's going to be a great, great, great time.
Now, stupid question here, but is the Hot for Yoga name an homage to what is the greatest Van Halen song of all time, or is it hot yoga, or both?
It is both. It is a hot yoga place, so the name, and especially, it's my wife's, and my wife's a rocker, like all of us. So the name just seemed like a no-brainer, perfect name for her studio, and that's what we used.
In terms
There
of
we
this
go.
diversified career, it's kind of hard to track you in that sometimes you're the producer, sometimes the sideman, sometimes you're the featured vocalist, etc. What is the best way to figure out what you're working on when you're working on it? Is it a particular social media account?
Well, there's the Jeff Pilson fan page on Facebook, and I'm the real Jeff Pilson on Instagram. The Jeff Pilson fan page is pretty good about explaining what I'm doing. And then, of course, anything, Revolution Saints, M Machine, Black Swan, all those things, you can go to their Facebook pages, or, there's lots of YouTube channels out there now with that stuff. So all the social media stuff will tell you what's going on. Just keep in contact.
Now, the quick two questions before I let you go. When it comes to concerts, it's your day job to be at concerts and be on the road. And most artists that I talk with, when they're not on the road, they are hermits. What's the last concert that got you to go out of the house where you went, I have to see these people?
Oh, wow. The last one. Well, I remember that I went with my daughter and wife to the Blue Stones. If you've heard of them, they're really,
Dating
really
group?
good. Yeah, saw them at a club here in LA. And whoever the headliner, I'm spacing out on who the headliner was, because the headliner was an even bigger band. But that was a really fun show. And yeah, that got me out of the house.
And then the last question is, I mentioned before that Mortal Kombat voice acting role.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that happen?
Well, strangely enough, my wife has a really good friend who happened to be a voiceover agent, and she had my daughter, who was only like 3 or 4 at the time. They wanted to see about using her, so she did a voiceover demo with my daughter, kind of coaxing her through it, and it came out amazing for my daughter to do like stuff. And while I was there when it happened, and she said, well, you have a kind of an interesting speaking voice. Have you ever thought of doing voiceover stuff? I said, yeah, I'd love to. I actually took a workshop in the early 90s. I took a workshop on voiceovers because I thought that would be something I'd love to do. And she said, well, let's do a demo. So I did a quick demo, and then she got me that part. Now, unfortunately, she passed away in a horrible accident just probably a month after I did the Johnny Cage thing. So I've never been able to, I've never had an avenue to pursue it past that, and I'm fairly busy. But she was amazing. She was really, really helpful. And yeah, that was a real tragic thing. I mean, she was a wonderful person. That's why it was tragic. But
Yeah.
but then it also kind of spelled the end of my voiceover career at the time.
Unless you do a reel of, you have the rock star thing, you have that, one or two bits of stage banter, I think you got a reel right there.
Probably could. Yeah. I mean, and maybe that's something I'll do when my time opens up a little bit in the future, but because right now
Yeah.
I'm pretty busy.
You
But
job number 6 and 7, we'll name
yeah,
that.
right. There you go.
Yeah, so the bottom line is this, Revolution Saints, still fresh, still interesting. Foreigner's busy. We're going to follow the Facebook fan page to know what's the latest and the greatest and all that. And thank you for the decades of great art. Really looking forward to what
Well,
you got
thank you.
next, whether you're the featured person or not, Jeff.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And the yoga retreat, never say never. Thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Paltrocast.